people think of animation only doing things where people are dancing around and doing a lot of histrionics, but animation is not a genre. And people keep saying, the animation genre. It's not a genre. A Western is a genre. Animation is an art form, and it can do any genre. You know, it could do a detective film, a cowboy film, a horror film, an R-rated film, or a kid's fairy tale. But it doesn't do one thing. And next time I hear, oh, what's it like working in the animation genre? I'm gonna punch that person.
Funding for Schaefer Illis is provided by Surfshark VPN. Tune until the end to find out about their amazing service. Life is weird sometimes. As I'm writing this video, it's been less than a week since I officially graduated from college with a bachelor's degree in economics, and I'm left with one simple 2-word question in my mind.
Now what?
4 years ago, the answer would have been simple, if a bit vague. Get a job in the business field and make a difference. And that would be life from then on. But the only thing predictable about life is its unpredictability. And believe it or not, I'm not talking about the global recession pandemic elephant in the room. I'm talking about this, the channel you're currently watching. The videos that have reached millions of people around the globe. People who respect my opinions on media and keep coming back to hear my voice. People I never thought I'd really ever connect with. And you guys have inspired me in ways I never considered to be possible. You've made me realize that my creative voice is valid, even though I had so many doubts about that throughout my youth. I'm still captivated by economics and I'm still pursuing a career in that field. But I now understand that there's another passion I can pursue, whether on the side or as the main focus of my life's work. I want to make things. I want to add something to this world, but doubt comes in nearly every time I dream about the works of art I want to create. Doubt that I'll finish them, doubt that anyone will care, doubt that any of these fantasies are sustainable at all. Doubt pervades every fiber of my being, and it's hard to break free of it no matter what I do. And whenever I'm overwhelmed with doubt and need to be reminded of the limitless creative potential that exists in every single one of us, I rewatch Ratatouille. A movie that tells me, yeah, people will care about the things I add to this world. No, it doesn't matter who I am or where I come from. Anyone can create something that will resonate or ring true with other people. Anyone has the power to change the world. Anyone can cook. As I come to terms with my desire to create art, a desire I repressed for years on end and only revived as a result of the overwhelming support I've received from friends and strangers alike these past few years, I continue coming back to this film. This extraordinary story about the little chef that could, and reflecting on what the film truly means to me. Nothing has changed since last year when I made my animated feature ranking. I still have some story problems with the film, I'd still put it at number 4 on the list, and I still prefer Spider-Verse, The Incredibles, and Spirited Away overall. But even though I think those are better movies, Ratatouille probably means more to me personally than all 3 of them combined. And with the exception of Lady Bird, I can't think of any film that speaks to me more personally than this. So what is it? Why does this movie about a French rat chef controlling a noodle-named, noodle-armed ginger man have such a profound message about the nature of the human condition? And why am I so obsessed with it? And what am I talking about when I say this is Pixar's magnum opus? I just said The Incredibles is better. Well, I also said Beauty and the Beast is better than Lion King, but Lion King is Disney's magnum opus. Magnum opus is defined as a large and important work of art, music, or literature, especially one regarded as the most important work of an artist or writer. Not necessarily the best, but definitely the most important. Again though, why? What's so special about Ratatouille, of all the movies Pixar has made, that elevates it to such a status? How is this film supposed to stand toe-to-toe with Lion King and be considered this studio's crowning achievement? Am I out of my mind? Probably, but that doesn't matter, because we're going on a journey together throughout this entire film, from beginning to end. That's not how I normally do things, obviously, but given how crucial this film's pacing is, I really couldn't have done it any other way. So let's find out together what makes Ratatouille the magnum opus of the Pixar canon. Right from the start, this movie does a ton to differentiate itself from the rest of the Pixar library. And this is something I picked up on as a kid. These movies all have energetic intros, be it wah, 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 or da da na 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 da. Da-da-na-na-na. Or even, you got a friend in me. Ratatouille ain't about that. The title of this movie just appears in front of a rainy house. No fanfare, no nothing. In fact, this whole intro is deliberately toned to feel miserable. The muted colors and cloudy weather contribute to an atmosphere of dullness that persists throughout most of the first 10 minutes. Basically, the movie's color palette is telling you that being a rat sucks. But the colors spark up a few times in these first 10 minutes, most notably through the taste sensation Remy experiences by combining two flavors. This is the mark of an artist, taking pre-existing ideas and using them to give birth to something entirely new and unexpected and sensational. In one visual, the magic of creating a new idea is perfectly captured. And the movie continues by illustrating Remy's passions, by having him come up with 5 different ideas at once and developing his own recipe on the spot. Unfortunately, he goes a little too far in his pursuit of Flavor Town and gets caught by the old lady while trying to take her saffron. This leads to an epic shootout. Seriously, how many Pixar movies can you say have shootouts in them? Oh, okay, I guess it's not that rare, never mind. And this shootout leads to the entire colony of rats getting exposed. Now, there's something really interesting about this plot development that I only noticed on my most recent viewing. Think about it. Remy does something that inadvertently causes something really bad to happen to the rest of his clan. It's a tale as old as time, really. Think back to A Bug's Life, where Flick's doohickey causes the ants' grain pile to fall into the water. Or what about Lion King 1.5, where Timon's song and dance routine distracts him and allows the hyenas to chase after his meerkat brethren. Here we got 3 movies that all have the same basic plot development. What's different about Ratatouille? Simple. Ratatouille doesn't have this boring ass scene where the clan is mad at the guy who screwed up. Now, I love Lion King 1.5, so I'm not going to insult it any further. So let me just say that A Bug's Life is probably the textbook example of how not to write a screenplay. This is the second time in recent memory I've unfavorably compared it to something else because it's just so self-indulgent with its tedious, cliched plot points. Ratatouille sees the main character screw up and get consequences for it, but it's not a stupid ass, we're mad at you scene. Instead, he gets separated from his clan in the sewers and he'll probably never see them again. That's pretty sad, but again, that was a direct consequence of his mistake. Here, the color palette is the darkest and dingiest it's ever been so far because this is his lowest point. He was miserable before, but at least he had his family. Now he has nothing. Except his innate desire to create. His internal passion and drive to make a difference in this world is made external through the ghost of Chef Gusteau. Can I just say what a brilliant decision this was, making Remy's internal voice be the chef he admired for so long? And it is his internal voice. The movie makes it explicit multiple times that these ain't no ghost shenanigans. Remy is simply talking to a figment of his imagination, the personification of his conscience and his desire to make things. So Remy takes Gusteau's advice, or rather his own advice, and keeps moving forward. What follows is an absolutely delectable sequence entirely driven by the score. And I must, of course, give my compliments to Michael Giacchino, aka Pixar's greatest musical asset. Now, we all love Pixar scores, and Randy and Thomas Newman always do a great job at developing some iconic music to go with the scenes in these films, like the Toy Stories, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, WALL-E, etc. But then Michael Giacchino jumped on the scene and... yeah, I like this shit. This dude is behind what I consider to be Pixar's most iconic scores. The Incredibles, Up, Inside Out, Coco, Yikes Nevermind. I think his entire career has just been invalidated. I'm joking, of course. This man's work is consistently phenomenal. He's done plenty of other high-profile work, like the Jurassic Worlds, the MCU Spider-Mans, Rogue One, the best movie of 2019, all this big stuff nowadays. But Pixar is what initially launched him into the stratosphere. Now, The Incredibles was inexplicably not nominated for Best Original Score, but Ratatouille finally garnered him his first Oscar nomination, and 2 years later, he scored his first and only win for Up. I personally think Up is the best score he's ever written, but Ratatouille is definitely a close second, and I think this scene easily demonstrates why. The music punctuates Remy's pitter-patter perfectly, and makes his ascent through a series of crevices and pipes way more engaging. He encounters a pathetic, easily avoidable trap, the shadow of Doug,
Hello there.
a couple that could probably use some counseling or something like yikes girl, and eventually patters his way outside, climbing the side of a building and glancing at a woman in shadow, entranced by an enticing taste. In a way, the perfect appetizer for what awaits him at the top. Remember how the movie deliberately set up a drab, stormy, miserable environment for the first 15 minutes of the film? Well, this glorious shot right here is the payoff. It's honestly magnificent. The luminous golden Eiffel Tower contrasted against the pink and purple sky. The swelling, incredible rendition of the movie's main theme taking center stage. Remy's realization that he's been so close to the city of his dreams for so long, and that he can finally see it for himself. There's only one word that comes to mind when I watch this scene, and that's cinema. This is easily one of the greatest moments in any Pixar film, and the movie is just getting started. At last, we get to see a gourmet kitchen in action, every piece flowing perfectly, every person doing their part to help the efficient, artistic machine run. Dare I say, a gourmet kitchen
is like an enormous
I was gonna say cluster, but that works too. And it's a cluster from the perspective of Linguini.
This guy.
Right away, we can see that this newly hired garbage boy is way out of his element. While Remy is living it up on top, impressing his imaginary boyfriend with his innate knowledge of the kitchen, Linguini is just trying to mop the floors and stay out of trouble. But he's a clumsy boy, and that causes him to spill some soup, so he's gotta fix it. Or just make it worse, that's always an option. Yeah! Remy once again puts his passions on full display for all of us to see. No rational person would get this upset about a soup getting ruined. It's just a soup, bro. Chillax. But Remy can't chillax. This is his greatest passion. His entire universe. The restaurant he's always dreamed of seeing for himself. And to watch someone desecrate the sanctity of Gusto's name by f***ing up soup this badly? He cannot stand for this. And that's really admirable, if a bit misguided.
Catch me, I'm falling.
After crash landing into the sink, we have a fun sequence where Remy evades all the perils of the kitchen and attempts to make his grand escape. And eventually, Remy gets his chance to make a break for it. But he gets a bit sidetracked by something. Now, Shelby from Girlfriend Reviews requested an analysis of the scene where Remy runs by the stinky soup and gags, so I obviously must oblige, even though the analysis will unfortunately not be 20 minutes as I promised. So Ratatouille the rat has his chance to escape, but as he runs past the soup, he says, "Hold up a minute, this is the worst thing ever created by a human, and its foul, repugnant odor is so heinous that it causes him to gag, even though rats are biologically unable to do so. This awful soup broke the laws of physics because it is simply that irredeemable. Now it's up to Remy to make this irredeemable soup unirredeemable. He figures he can just half-ass it and throw in a couple yum-yums before continuing his escape. But then he really starts to realize the opportunity he has been gifted here. A chance to do some real cooking in the restaurant he always dreamed to do it in. His chance to live out his greatest passion is here before him, and he knows he would never be able to live with himself if he didn't seize the opportunity. And so, he does. The cauldron is his canvas, and he begins painting his very first masterpiece. A flurry of ingredients flies through the air and into the delicious mixture being concocted by an artist in his prime, in his element, with the music perfectly scoring every action. There is no better word for this sequence than sensational. Nothing can stop Remy now. Uh-oh. Yeah, Remy gets caught for this transgression, and Linguini gets caught by Skinner, who yells at him for attempting to cook in his kitchen. But while he's distracted, the soup is sent out.
Stop that sauce!
And to everyone's shock, the critic really likes it. And even though Skinner is still angry with Linguini, he seems to be in the minority here.
How can we claim to represent the name of Gusto if we don't uphold his most cherished belief?
Anyone can cook.
There it is. In one simple phrase, Remy's passion has been validated. He's made a delicious dish of his own in the greatest restaurant in Paris, and for the first time in his life, he's received validation for his life's dream, even if he isn't getting the credit. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that Gusteau was right. A rat can cook. And in the eyes of these chefs, a simple garbage boy can cook. So Skinner finally reads the room and gives Linguini another chance to cook the soup again.
Oh shit! A rat!
The day of reckoning has come, Remy. Prepare to die.
And stop staring at me with them big old eyes.
Now, I've seen a lot of people who do not particularly care for Linguini. They say stuff like, oh, Luigi's just a regular old goofball. He's a pretty standard wignut. He's a knucklehead McSpazatron. Oh my god, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard someone call Linguini a knucklehead McSpazatron, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? I get why not everyone thinks Linguini is anything special, but personally, I think he's hilarious. I love watching this bumbling idiot finesse his way through a gourmet kitchen with the help of a rat, and I think there's actually more going on inside him that a lot of people give him credit for. He has a lot of expectations to live up to, both through Remy's cooking abilities and his illustrious lineage. But we'll get to those things later. Here we finally get to see our main duo get to know each other for the first time. Oh, Pixar sure loves those main duos. Woody and Buzz, Mike and Sully, Jack Black and Smith Tail. It's such a common format employed by the studio, but there's a consistent element throughout all these movies that isn't present in Ratatouille. In these movies, both characters talk and play off of each other. It's a fun format, but Ratatouille decides to make a somewhat risky change to the concept. What if one of them doesn't talk? Obviously, half-silent duos have existed plenty of times before this movie, but Pixar never gave it a try at this point. It would be so easy to just have Remy talk to Linguini and remove the communication barrier entirely. But in my opinion, this would have weakened the movie considerably, since it would have destroyed the idea that Remy's from a different world than the one he wants to join. I almost feel bad picking on this movie because it clearly was never made with the intention to rise to the same levels as Ratatouille. It clearly didn't ask for this. But f*** it. B-Movie and Ratatouille are the same movie, and here's why. They both come out in 2007. They both about animals who are told they not talk to humans, but then they meet the humans.
What is the deal with Hideo Kojima?
There's a conflict involving the ethics of stealing, and finally, the humans come to realize that this tiny animal really is on their same level of intellect, and that they can coexist with each other in spite of the bigots who disagree.
Oh, that bee is living my life!
So these are the same movie, I proved it. Now, B-Movie aspires to lower heights than Ratatouille, and that's not an insult, that's just a fact. A film fact! B-Movie wants to be a lighthearted comedy about Jerry Seinfeld B hitting it off with Renee Zellweger lady. Also, side note, I want to clear my name. I knew who Renee Zellweger was before I made the Shark Tale review. Me pretending not to know who she was a dumb joke. I'm a theater kid. I've seen Chicago. Calm down. Anyway, B-Movie was never intended to be a cinematic masterpiece. But I think the way its themes and ideas intersect with Ratatouille really goes to show just how above and beyond Ratatouille went. Not just as an animated kids film, but as a film in general. Besides, I don't think Ratatouille is a kids film, but we'll get to that later. B-Movie and Ratatouille both present their protagonists with the notion that they should not talk to humans under any circumstances. This notion is supported by the fact that the humans don't take kindly to their kind around here. But ultimately, both Barry and Remy are shown kindness by one human, one person who has an opportunity to dispose of them, but decides not to out of the goodness of their heart. From here, the animal forms a relationship of some sort with the human, in spite of a disapproving world. But again, there is one key difference between these two stories. Barry Benson B can talk. Like it's nothing. So he can have witty banter with Vanessa and tell those pesky humans what's for. For all intents and purposes, Barry and all the other bees are just tiny people. Not that there's anything wrong with that. B-Movie is, in a word, bonkers. And that's exactly what it wants to be. A pure comedy that isn't really meant to be taken seriously. That's fine for what the movie wants to accomplish, but it also personifies the easy way out. The easy way to showcase a relationship of equals between an animal and a human. Even if Ratatouille wants to take itself more seriously than B-movie, it could have just made things simple and have Remy secretly talk to Linguini. Have him whisper instructions and hope this clumsy dude can properly follow them. But it doesn't take the easy way out. It wants to take itself seriously. Both Ratatouille and B-movie are equally silly premises when you get down to it. But Ratatouille takes its silly premise and shows what kind of creativity and emotional significance can be achieved if you try hard enough. They treat the idea of a rat who wants to become a chef realistically, which is why he doesn't talk. They realize that that would be a step too far. And so they do something that is simultaneously more realistic and more outlandish and much, much more creative. Who would even think about making a movie where a rat controls a human like a puppet by pulling on his hair? It's absolutely absurd, and yet, even though it takes time to get used to, it starts to make sense as the story continues on. We, the audience, start to accept this absurd system of control because it just becomes second nature to the characters. And through it, we get to see these two characters directly help each other achieve their own desired success. Linguini becomes a star at the restaurant, and he starts to win over his new mentor, Colette, and Remy gets to live out his lifelong dream of cooking at Gusteau's. The way these two characters directly affect each other's destinies like this makes them one of the most memorable and well-written duos in Pixar history, even though only one of them is doing the talking. That really doesn't matter because right from the start, Linguini and Remy have excellent chemistry. Whether through Linguini's paranoid shouting or Remy's subtle, humorous mannerisms, they connect extremely well and have some great exchanges. I really like how Remy initially runs away, content with having tricked this clown, before he regains his conscience and returns to help. I like how Linguini initially thinks Remy has stolen food and run off, only to find him innocently cooking an omelet. The fact that they come into conflict with each other and don't trust each other at first makes their relationship feel more realistic. It feels like there's a ton of progression here, and it only gets more interesting as it goes along. But we'll get to that later. At this point in the movie, it's fun to watch these two slowly improve their craft with this whole hair puppet maneuver. This montage, where we get to see them spectacularly fail at cooking, only to get better and better, to the point where they can handle a knife no problem, is a big part of the reason why this hair pulling tactic starts to feel more natural and less weird to us. And so our boys finally recreate the soup. But that was just a tutorial level shit. I think now is as good time as any to talk about Brad Bird and what really sets his Pixar movies apart from the rest of the pack. So, obviously, I think The Incredibles and Ratatouille are the two best Pixar movies, by a long shot. And as I've said numerous times before, it's because in sharp contrast to most other Pixar films, they feel like they were written specifically for adults. Brad Bird writes films intended to be enjoyed by adults first and kids second, because he doesn't believe that animation is a genre. That would imply that everything from Samurai Jack to Rick and Morty to Caillou all falls under the same genre and is accordingly very similar, which, can I just say,
What?
Well, it's a little bizarre to have in the same category Shaun the Sheep nominated alongside Anomalisa, the new Charlie Kaufman existential drama. So that animated category is a little bit of a joke.
Well, if it's animated, then it doesn't matter.
Well, that's like then don't have Best Picture. Like, all these movies are so completely different. Like, if you're gonna have Best Animated, then you have to have subcategories for that too. I don't know. It's a bunch of nonsense.
Animation isn't a genre. It is a storytelling medium. Now, for the longest time, I didn't understand what made him so aggro about this terminology conflict. But when you consider how tonally distinct The Incredibles and Ratatouille are from other Pixar movies, it starts to make sense. And believe me, I'm not trying to disparage the other Pixar movies. They're also great. Pre-Cars 2 Pixar movies are great and thematically rich and tell intricate, fantastic stories, but Incredibles and Ratatouille just take things to the next level. In Incredibles, we're dealing with a man going through a realistic midlife crisis, a woman being realistically concerned about her husband having an affair, a man committing genocide on a group of so-called super individuals that he was shunned by, an attempted suicide, and a Schrodinger's cat-like discussion about the nature of a thumbtack that simultaneously does or does not exist.
Coincidence? I think not!
Incredibles 2 is not very good, but even that movie operates in the same fashion sometimes. There's a lot of intelligent conversations about giving up our freedoms and desire to do things ourselves out of the sake of convenience, and some other stuff, I assume. But see, this is what Brad Bird does. He gives adults a ton of ideas to think about. He writes all of his movies as if they are primarily intended for an adult audience. There's a difference between putting thought-provoking adult themes in your animated movie and putting in lame pop culture references to keep adults from falling asleep.
Are you not entertained?
No. There's a difference between putting mild sexual themes or alcohol in your movie because it fits the tone, and doing this.
He won 3 piston cups. He did what in his cup?
Ugh. Ratatouille decides to start delivering the goods in a number of different ways, starting with Colette literally calling out the patriarchy and how hard it is for a woman to succeed in a culinary setting. This is a concept I would have loved to see explored more, especially considering how much of an asshole Skinner is. It wouldn't be out of place to make him more sexist and less respectful of Colette's contributions to the kitchen, but I guess that would have made the movie more depressing and a little too real. So the way they move on from it is fine. Skinner's enough of an asshole, as we can see by him exploiting Gusteau's image in order to sell microwave burritos. I didn't know what any of this meant as a kid, I just thought it was funny when all the Gusteaus talked to Remy later on. This is such a bizarre plot thread to put in your kids movie, unless you weren't making a kids movie at all. See what I mean when I say this movie was written for adults? Skinner is presented as a greedy, money-grubbing opportunist who completely lacks any artistic integrity, opting instead to exploit the image of his famous deceased friend. He's a big ol' sellout, except it's worse because he's not even selling out with his own image. He's using a dead man's image to further his frozen food business pursuits. He's honestly way more evil than I ever gave him credit for as a kid, and the fact that Brad Bird snuck this under our 9-year-old noses is such a testament to how much better his movies are for adults than they are for kids. But Bradley isn't done with his adult themes yet. Suddenly, Gusteau apparently had an affair, and Linguini is his offspring? What? Plus, we get Colette telling us about all the apparent serial killers who work in this kitchen.
I killed a man with this thumb.
Again, I had no idea what she was talking about when she said this one guy fooled around with the circus ringmaster's daughter, or how this other guy ran guns for the resistance. The only thing I understood here was,
I killed a man with this thumb.
honestly, this is where some of the missed opportunities in the script start to present themselves. I really wish these chef boys could have been fleshed out more, since their backstories are honestly really fun and entertaining. There's this one guy, LaRousse, who has so much personality despite never saying a word. When Linguini first captures Remy and asks if he should kill him now, we get LaRousse maliciously nodding in the background. But as Skinner tells him to take the rat outside, LaRousse's smile fades and he extinguishes the fire. What a letdown. But then later on, when Linguini becomes president of Gusteau's and stops frozen food production, LaRousse finally gets his chance to commit arson on all the Gusteau standees. Look how happy he is to set property on fire. What a lad. This is some nice attention to detail with his characterization, and it really makes me wish these guys had more characterization. I want to know more about them and see them functioning as a unit. Colette also somewhat disappoints me, as she's ultimately just a tool for Linguini's development. It's nice to see the two of them connect over time, similarly to how Linguini and Remy connected, though I guess not exactly the same way. Yeah! But ultimately, I feel like her character is pretty bare bones, and maybe they should have gone further with the overcoming the patriarchy angle. Though, something tells me this wouldn't have flown at Pixar at the time, so I guess we just gotta work with what we got. Colette at least manages to provide an interesting wedge between Linguini and Remy, and it's a good setup. It all starts when someone asks,
What is new? You? What did you tell them? I told them. What is new? You? What's going on? Customers. What should I tell them?
I don't know, man, why are you asking me?
I told them. What is new? Simple.
Skinner sees this as an opportunity to sabotage Linguini's success by giving him the most rancid-ass recipe in existence. Like, this shit calls for seahorse radish, toenail clippings, you gotta drop it in the toilet. Oh my god, it's just horrible. I really like Remy's body language when Colette is reading the recipe. He's like, oh shit, how am I gonna salvage this? And salvage it, he does. Remy improvises a brand new version, guiding Linguini all around the kitchen in a dynamic, funny, tension-filled cooking quest. But Colette, who's always preached the value of following Gusteau's recipes, shuts Remy's ideas down and delivers the shitty-ass chum bucket version. But before she can add the seahorse radish, Remy swoops in with the Krabby Patty secret ingredient, and oh my god, it's just so exciting. Pixar movies often have life or death scenarios with a ton of tension and adrenaline, but this movie manages to capture those same feelings just by showing us a battle of wits between two brilliant chefs, with Linguini caught in the middle. It's a tremendous accomplishment. So yeah, Remy's gambit pays off and he and Linguini enjoy a night of success. Remy gets to take a well-earned break, while Skinner gets Linguini drunk as hell. A perfect cap-off to the most explicitly adult portion of the film. Now's as good time as any to catch up with our Rat King. Returning to the B-movie conundrum, the trade-off of not having Remy talk to Linguini is the fact that he hasn't really talked that much for the past 30 minutes. So it's maybe a little jarring to pick up his storyline with his family again after we just experienced a long stretch of time where he's staying silent and interacting with Linguini. But despite being initially a bit weird for the film to shift gears like this, it quickly becomes apparent what a great plot thread this is. At this point, Remy is living it up and he ain't gonna stop. He's found a place where he really belongs, and by reintroducing his family here, it becomes clear that his sensibilities and desires never really coincided with theirs. What initially just seems like a cute, relatively pointless scene of Remy trying to get a meal to savor food and enjoy taste sensations is actually a soft way of breaking it to Remy that he'll always be different from his family, and that they'll never really understand him or his passion. The hard way comes during his conversation with his father, who is not named in the film, but the script says his name is Django. It's probably pronounced Django, but I'm calling him Django anyway because it's fun to say. Django is absolutely dumbfounded with the idea that Remy isn't staying, which leads to an argument over what kind of rat Remy is. Here, Remy finally expresses his desire to thrive and create rather than just take and survive. To him, surviving is not living. He wants to contribute art to the world because that is what will give him purpose and fulfillment. Maybe it's not how a rat should be behaving, but that doesn't matter to him. It's what he wants to do with his life. Honestly, I relate to Remy so hard here. Just the idea of creating something that'll impress or inspire people you don't know. The fact that you're leaving an impact on others' lives through your creations, it's just an exhilarating thought to me, and I doubt I'm the only one who thinks that. Art can and will outlive us when we're gone, which is why it's so inspiring to create and add something to this world, even if everything seems to be working against you. Remy is an extreme example, but even so, seeing his stalwart desire to overcome adversity and create against all odds and reason and logic is one of the most powerful aspects of a film I've ever seen. But of course, it doesn't gel with his father's perception of how a rat should behave. So Django tries to discourage Remy from meddling with the human world by showing him the traps and poisons humans use on rats. In typical kids movie fashion, Remy gets discouraged by this scary sight and begins to wonder if he'll ever be able to trust humans like Linguini again. Oh wait, that doesn't happen because this isn't a kids movie. Remy actually stands firm in his belief that he can change the future and make things better between rats and humans. Because after all, change is nature. So after that, we've got some fun shenanigans with Linguini being asleep and him confessing that he likes Colette and all that stuff. This is as good a time as any to say just how excellent the voice cast is. And what's really cool is that it's not just a pile of A-list celebrities thrown in there for the sake of getting butts and seats. Just a really solid group of talented performers. I'm really glad they went with Patton Oswalt for the voice of Remy. His voice is just an exquisite fit for a snarky, yet hopeful rat. Janine Garofalo and Ian Holm bring excellent levels of manic energy to Colette and Skinner, respectively. But damn, I just can't get enough of Linguini's voice. Lou Romano is an animator who just happens to be an exceptionally talented voice actor as well. Kinda like Walt Doran, who played Rumpelstiltskin. Lou Romano doesn't just voice Linguini. No. He voiced the most iconic Pixar character of all, Bernie.
Don't Bernie me! This little rat is guilty!
Romano brings such great comedic timing to Linguini. It's probably my favorite performance in the movie. And the animators obviously had the time of their lives bringing his puppet-like movement to life. This is actually one of the reasons Brad Bird wanted to take over the project in the first place. He was excited by the physical comedy possibilities present with Linguini, and I think this passion definitely paid off. Okay, so the scene ends with Linguini and Colette kissing, and as a kid I didn't realize she had pepper spray. I thought that was rat poison and that she somehow knew that Linguini was about to reveal that there's a rat controlling him. I don't know why I was so stupid as a kid. Anyway though, this newfound romance presents its own problems. Now the conflict between Remy and Colette is heightened, since Linguini resists his rat programming and takes Colette's advice more often. Remy starts feeling like he's needed less and less by Linguini, and it's not a coincidence that this is the point in the movie where he starts stealing food for his brother and the other rats. The concept of stealing is synonymous with rats in this movie. It's all they do. And Remy, despite his father's beliefs to the contrary, is still a rat at the end of the day. And as he starts feeling more and more neglected with the human world, since Linguini is taking off without him, he starts becoming more and more in touch with his rat instincts. It's a subtle, yet neat touch. And Remy's about to steal the most important thing of his life.
No!
No, I wish. So, I think the next two scenes back to back really say something interesting about the pace and overall tone of this movie. But first, can I just say what a weird line this is?
Why would Linguini be filed with your will?
This used to be my office.
Huh? That doesn't answer the question, like, at all. But anyway, Remy discovers the truth about Linguini's dad. He's Gusteau's
Son. Yeah, we got that when you said dad.
Yeah, he's his son. This leads to a manic chase where Skinner tries to get those documents back from Remy and hide the evidence that Linguini rightfully owns the restaurant. And I have to say, on rewatch, this scene feels a little out of place. I don't know, there's been action-y tense scenes earlier in the movie, but they all made sense since it was about a rat trying to evade danger, the old lady with a shotgun, and the perils of the kitchen. They felt somewhat more grounded and they fit the tone. But something about this chase weirds me out. It's a good enough scene on its own, but it feels like maybe they go a step too far with Skinner here. Now, I definitely enjoy Skinner as a character more than most people. I think he's really funny and I like his increasing insanity and paranoia regarding whether Remy is real or not. I like the visual of this really short guy being constantly angry at everyone, and I like how the movie doesn't actually make any jokes about him being short. It's strictly a visual comedy element. Like, I love you, Shrek, but please shut the f up. I don't need to hear a 17th joke about Lord Farquaad's height. It's not as funny as you think it is. So yeah, Skinner is a fun key player and a decent antagonist for this portion of the movie, but I kinda get the impression that this chase scene was only added because Brad Bird was told he needed more action. This is the one part of the movie that feels like it's mainly for kids, which probably explains why it took me out of the film a little bit. But whatever, I suppose it's a decent way to close out Skinner's role as an antagonist. Except not really, but we'll get to that later. What I love, however, is the montage that follows this chase scene. It's like a complete 180 from what we just saw, because it feels exceptionally adult and refined. I suppose hearing the majestic and magnificent Le Festin for the first time in the film in vocal form really helps. But yeah, everything just goes right in this montage. Linguini is declared king of Gusteau's, he bans all the shameless frozen foods, he has a nice new house, he and Colette enjoy each other's company, even Bon Voyage has turned over a new leaf and begun entertaining children. Wholesome. I feel like now is a great time to talk about the way the movie is paced and the overall tone the pacing is striving for. Way back in my animated feature ranking, I said that this movie feels like a smart indie film. But like, how so? Well, this is gonna be a little hard to describe, so bear with me. So, the thing about mainstream movies is that they are usually always goal-based. The characters need to achieve some sort of goal. In a Marvel movie, it's usually beat the villain. In a Star Wars movie, it's usually beat the villains. In a Pixar movie, it's often get from point A to point B. Andy's House, Paradise Falls, The Land of the Living, wherever the f they were going in Good Dinosaur. Or the goal could be something else, like get Boo home, find Nemo, find Dory. Oh wait, what? The movie was about finding Dory's parents? Well then why the f was it called Finding Dory? Goal-based movies are important for general audiences. They need a goal in their movies that gets achieved by the end. Otherwise, they'll come out of it saying, what was the point? Now, this doesn't always pan out. Good Dinosaur had a goal that was achieved, and everyone who saw it still came out asking what the point was. But regardless, this is a concession that needs to be made with mainstream films, independent of how good many of them are. But sometimes, a filmmaker can sneak a movie into the mainstream without a goal. 1.5 Pixar movies come to mind in this regard. First up, Toy Story 2. Part of the reason this is easily the best Toy Story movie, and anyone who thinks different is lying to themselves, is because half of the movie doesn't have a set in stone goal. Buzz and the toys are trying to get Woody back. That's a goal. Good for them. But Woody, despite initially attempting to escape and return home, slowly starts to rethink his position and what it means to be a toy in general, leading to a lot of slower paced, more introspective and emotionally moving sequences where he just talks to the other toys around him. This stuff is absolutely phenomenal, and it's what makes the movie work so well. As a kid, I loved the Buzz stuff and thought the Woody stuff was pretty good, but as an adult, it's the other way around. I have fun with Buzz and the gang's misadventures, but it's the Woody storyline that really hooks me because it feels independent from the traditional mainstream format of many animated films. I also want to mention The Incredibles, which follows this more indie format for the first half of the movie before transitioning quite masterfully into a more goal-based superhero finale. But the one Pixar movie that sticks to an indie formula all the way through, the one that isn't afraid to tell a more unconventionally structured story than its peers, is Cars 2. I'm not gonna finish that. No. Anyway, before returning to Ratatouille, let's talk about indie structure. Independent art house films are much more free with what they can do. They don't need to worry about alienating the audience. I came here to be alienated, damn it. I want a rich cinematic experience I could tell my grandchildren about. I need something more real. Many indie movies are just about life. It's not clear what the end goal is, if there's even any at all. It's just a matter of showing us a slice of life, and as a result, the events shown on screen don't have to follow a rigid system of progression like they do in mainstream movies. Captain America can't be at a shopping mall checking out computers, and then suddenly the scene changes to a secret Nazi bunker with a German scientist whose brain is in a computer. We need to know how those two scenes connect to each other, and why he visited Cyber Doofenshmirtz. The plot is the primary focus, and we need to know why he is where he is at all times. But in an indie movie, oftentimes we're just watching life unfold. No obvious rhyme or reason between how certain scenes connect. We're just shown glimpses of what life is like for a certain person. Okay, so easy example, Lady Bird, one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and it really doesn't have a plot. We're just following the main character throughout her senior year of high school, watching her conflict with her mother, her experience with 2 different boyfriends, her falling out and reconciliation with her best friend. All of that is captured within 94 minutes of runtime. An entire year filled to the brim with emotional, relatable, wholesome content. It only took 94 minutes for this movie to change many people's lives, including mine. And I feel like it's because the movie isn't tethered to a strict plot. It can focus on character, and it feels well paced as a result. Now, this format takes a really skilled writer to pull off, or else it can become bloated and boring and not very good at all. But when it works wonders. I can't name how many seemingly plotless movies over the past few years have managed to leave an incredible impression on me. And now, we finally come back to Ratatouille. What is the goal here? Remy wants to cook. That's it. And guess what? He gets his chance to cook right here with the soup. By all means, that's the end of the story if we're adhering to goal-based story structure. Okay, wait. Maybe he wants to cook consistently and not just that one time. Well, now he is cooking consistently with linguine. 55 minutes in, the goal has been completed. But the movie keeps going because there are characters to flesh out, new storylines to tell, new struggles that continue to pop up over time. That's just how life is. Ratatouille is the only Pixar movie that just centers around characters living life, encountering new struggles and hardships as they go on living. And that's why this is the most sophisticated Pixar movie ever made. Its scenes don't flow one after the other within a consistent plot. They just showcase these people cooking, deepening bonds, discovering things about each other, and so much more. It's unclear how much time passes between each scene, and I love that because it makes the movie feel more authentic. Like we're actually watching glimpses of these people's lives and not just a journey starring movie characters. This sort of pacing style isn't unprecedented in animation. Studio Ghibli films generally follow this format, for instance, and oh, what do you know, they're generally considered the pinnacle of animation in general by a lot of people. But Ratatouille represents that one spectacular instance where Pixar decided to take a bold risk and create a movie that didn't adhere to the mainstream story structure. A movie with a more refined, adult tone than any of its contemporaries. A movie that would only grow in esteem over the years before finally blossoming into one of their most beloved and respected. A true cinematic masterpiece. But this movie still needs a climax and a rather unconventional new villain. At this point in the story, the true antagonist begins to manifest. And believe me, Skinner tried his best. But it's not him. It's ego. No, not that ego. Ego with a small e. Ego permeates all of the main characters and drives the conflicts they have with one another. It's exceptionally hard to achieve success without some level of arrogance eventually seeping in. When Linguini finds out he's part of the illustrious Gusteau lineage, ego begins to set in. Suddenly, he believes that he doesn't need Remy to succeed anymore. He resents being treated like a puppet, and he'd rather listen to Colette's advice from now on. Linguini completely forgets who it was that got him to the place he's at today. That's ego. Remy, on the other hand, gets mad at Linguini for not acknowledging his contributions to both of their success. But Linguini can't physically acknowledge him outside of calling him the little chef in his head, which sounds quite bizarre to the average person. Even so, Remy expects all the acknowledgement for Linguini's triumphs, ignoring the fact that Colette did play a significant role in helping both of them along. He gets furious that Linguini would dare to call Colette his inspiration as a chef. That's ego. And finally, we have Anton Ego himself. He is absolutely furious with the idea that Gusteau's is popular again, despite the scathing review he gave it years ago. He's convinced that he is the utmost authority on all things cuisine, and that his reviews and perspectives are gospel. And now we have the masses overturning the ruling of the gospel? Why? It's heresy. So much so that Ego has to rise from his coffin-shaped abode and deliver one last death blow to the restaurant once and for all. He believes that he alone is allowed to determine the success or failure of an entire restaurant.
How could it be popular?
That's Ego. And so the critic arrives in person to warn Linguini of his impending call-out post. Gusteau's is going to be #canceled for sure. So the pressure is on for both Linguini and Remy, and their ego-driven conflict reaches a boiling point. Remy, who's fed up beyond belief with Linguini, makes a hasty decision and invites his family to steal food. He feels rejected by the human world, so he gives in to his rat instincts. And when Linguini comes to apologize and discovers the heist in progress, he's totally right to get angry. It's such a harsh betrayal, and you can see the guilt on Remy's face. It's clear that he regrets acting so rashly, but at this point, it's too late. So here we have a pretty natural main character splitting up low points. It's not based on any tedious misunderstandings or liar reveals. It stems from a legitimate betrayal. And I think it works really well, even if it is an overused trope. But it's really heartwarming when Remy and Linguini reunite because they need each other. Remy is done pretending and he's finally ready to be his own cook. Linguini is done pretending that he knows literally a single thing about fine dining and breathing. Together they reveal the truth to everyone in the kitchen. Oh yeah, I forgot Remy got captured by Skinner. Honestly, this kind of feels like a waste of 5 minutes to me. Skinner already served his role in the story, but the movie keeps clinging to him and I don't know why. Okay. I can't believe I'm about to bring this movie up as a positive example, but here goes. Even B-movie knew when to get rid of Ken. He served his purpose as an antagonist, and then we see him again in the ending. That's all we really needed from Skinner. Just a similar scene in the ending where we see where he's at. I don't know why the movie kept clinging to him like this. He wants to force Remy into slave labor and have him create a line of Chef Skinner frozen foods, as if anyone's gonna buy that. Skinner doesn't have the same brand recognition and appeal as Gusteau. Oh wait, what am I saying? Patented Skinner burgers. Yeah, I'd totally buy some steamed hams from this guy. That sounds delicious. Anyway though, the rats save Remy and he goes back to the restaurant, but like, this still feels pointless. Remy didn't have to be caged up to emotionally reconcile with Gusteau and then tell his family he was going back to the restaurant. That could have just happened right outside the restaurant and nothing in the story would change. But this is kind of a nitpick. Ultimately, it doesn't make a difference outside of being a little embarrassing that the movie still considers Skinner important. Anyway, yeah. The truth coming out here is really powerful. Linguini is finally forced to admit that he has no cooking talent at all, despite being the son of Gusteau. He then presents the staff with his polar opposite, Remy, the little chef that came from nothing, yet was able to share his incredible talents with the world. He managed to bring the restaurant so much success, and Linguini hopes that his fellow cooks will accept Remy, as he has. But no one is willing to accept this strange new idea. No one stands behind Linguini, not even Colette. Remy and Linguini are left alone with a hungry clientele and a stern, impatient critic. While the stakes are lower than most Pixar movies, they feel just as high because these characters feel so real, and their absurd situation feels deeply genuine. However, Colette, the staunchest believer of Gusteau's philosophies and ideals throughout the movie, has an epiphany upon seeing Gusteau's message written plainly in front of her. Anyone can cook. Anyone happens to include a plethora of rats, as Remy's dad completes his arc and expresses how proud he is of his son for following his dreams. So he brings the old rat family in to save the day and start cooking while Linguini waits tables. Also, they kidnap the health inspector. It's all just so inspiring to see. Colette returns and helps Remy cook his dish of choice for Ego, Ratatouille. It looks delicious, even though it does sound a lot like rat patootie, which does not sound delicious. Hey, did you know that if you customize a frying pan in Animal Crossing, you can actually make ratatouille? I think that's amazing. Nintendo gets what we want. Anyway though, the dish is prepared and sent out to Ego, and we watch with bated breath as he takes a bite. So let's talk about the character of Anton Ego. As I said before, his name could not be any more fitting. He's a cold, intimidating, pretentious critic who believes that his word on any culinary matter is final.
That was my last word. The last word.
At the very beginning of the movie, we close out a television broadcast all about the life and times of Gusteau, with an anecdote from Ego, dismissing the notion that anyone can cook. Ego expresses the sentiment that no, not anyone can cook, and the screen fades to black. This is the statement the movie wants to leave us with before fading into the story of Remy. This is the movie's direct response to Ego's perspective. It goes on to establish a story where someone is told by the world that he cannot cook, only to prove the world wrong again and again. Since the movie set up this connection between Ego's perspective and Remy's rejection of said perspective, the only way this film can end is with this culinary confrontation. We must see if Ego will change his mind. And it seems beyond unlikely. He gave the only negative review of Gusteau's back in the day, costing the restaurant one of its 5 stars and causing Gusteau himself to die of sadness. Ego broke his heart. He's going down a path Gusteau can't follow, but Ego doesn't care because he revels in being the ultimate contrarian and crushing dreams. He believes that he is the only man qualified to provide perspective, since no one else seems to have it in this bloody town. And once again, this is the most egotistical perspective imaginable. It will truly take a miracle to convince this ghastly man to speak positively about Remy's food. So now, we return to the taste test. I've struggled with how to accurately convey my feelings on this scene for the better part of an hour now. It simply cannot be done justice with words. Attempting to do so would honestly just cheapen it. This is my favorite scene in any Pixar movie, and one of my favorite scenes in cinema. And it ends with the critic dropping his pen, the source of his power and privilege and ego, to the ground. He's no longer eating this meal as a harborer of judgment. He's simply enjoying a delicious, warm, nostalgic meal as a food lover for the first time in God knows how long. He expresses his compliments to the chef, but Linguini surprises him by telling him the truth. He could have just said, "Thanks, now get out and go give us a positive review," but at this point he's done lying, and he wants his friend to get the recognition he truly deserves. So they explain that Remy is the true cook. A risky move for sure, but one that evidently paid off. Everyone loves Ego's speech because it just rings so true. But I have to admit, after critiquing movies for the better part of 2 years now, the speech takes on an even greater meaning to me personally than it did before I started all this analysis stuff. It's true that the work of a critic is generally easy. I mean, take a look at Shark Tale, an extraordinarily abominable film that's so obviously bad and easy to pick on. It's simple to look at this generally disliked movie and take up a position above it. So easy to look down on its awful characters and broken story and say, what an embarrassing feature film. Indeed, I thrive on negative criticism, which is fun to write and to watch in video form. But the bitter truth I must face is that in the grand scheme of things, the average piece of junk like Shark Tale is probably more meaningful than my criticism designating it so. I mean, my video on Shark Tale had a lot of problems and wasn't great overall, but even if it was up to the standards of my modern work, there is still more artistry, thought, and care put into the product of hundreds of animators, actors, writers, and directors than a single 33-minute review made by one pretentious 20-something. But there are times when a critic truly risks something, and that is in the discovery and defense of the underappreciated. The world is often unkind to the neglected, the deceptively great, the films that were written off by history. These films need friends. Ratatouille was hardly in need of attention and acclaim upon its release, but generally grew overshadowed by the films that followed it, and even those that preceded it. All these films worthy of praise in their own rights. And yet, to say that Ratatouille in particular has challenged my preconceptions about art house filmmaking is a gross understatement. It has rocked me to my core. In the past, I have never understood Brad Bird's insistence that animation be treated as a medium, not a genre. But I realize only now do I truly understand what he meant. Not everyone can produce a great art house film, but a great art house film can come from anywhere. It is difficult to imagine more unexpected origins than those of the work of genius known as Ratatouille, which is, in this critic's opinion, nothing less than Pixar's magnum opus. I will be rewatching Ratatouille again soon, hungry for more. In my best animated feature ranking video, I lamented the fact that Ratatouille was criminally underrated, and I hoped more people would start giving it the respect it deserves. And, well, I think my desire has come true. I've seen many more people on social media lately praising this movie and talking about how exceptional it is, even calling it one of the best Pixar movies, which it is. Also, I guess that trend of Esteemed becoming popular on TikTok helped a bunch. Good job, TikTok, you did something right for once. But ultimately, I think that this film has managed to speak to so many people because of how inspiring and uplifting its message is. That of perseverance, of following your passions, of never letting go of your dreams in spite of all the disadvantages life throws your way. This movie paints a vivid and unconventional portrait of an artist who, in spite of everything, ends up thriving in his quest to follow his dreams. The people who grew up watching this movie as kids are finally at an age where this story speaks to them on an exceptionally personal level, which is why they're revisiting it and discovering just what an exquisite work of art it truly is. In my opinion, Pixar has never made something on the same level of quality and expertise as this film in the 13 years since its release. And after a decade of mostly mediocrity, I feel like Pixar fans are craving something similar to Ratatouille. Something just as rich, mature, and inspiring. If you want proof, just read the comments section of the teaser trailer for Pixar's next film, Soul. This trailer sucks so many people in by depicting an artist pursuing his dreams. It was so uplifting and gorgeous and oh, okay, never mind. I guess he's a blue blob guy now. Okay. Obviously, I haven't seen the movie yet. Maybe it will be the next Ratatouille. It's definitely possible. But the fact that such a jarring tonal shift occurred in this trailer, and the fact that people were not happy that the inspirational angle was dropped in favor of funny cowboy dance, says quite a lot about what Pixar fans my age really want from this studio. They want something adult again. I think the backlash was perfectly summarized with this one comment. I wanted this to be more of a Ratatouille, rather than an Inside Out kind of vibe, you know? Yeah, I know. Once again, we don't know what the future holds for Pixar, and I don't want to disparage the amazing works of art they've put out the past few years amongst all the mediocrity. But in my mind, Ratatouille is the cornerstone of how exceptional Pixar can be if they would only set their mind to it. It's an absolute masterpiece and an indication that mainstream media can have all the hallmarks of an art house feature without sacrificing mass appeal. It's truly miraculous that a movie can be this excellent for both families and film lovers alike. And you know what? If Sony Animation can make a legit cinematic masterpiece, then I see no reason why Pixar can't one day make something superior to The Incredibles and Ratatouille. So Pixar, my only advice left to give is surprise me. Perhaps one day we'll have a conversation about Pixar Animation Studios' new magnum opus. But until then, I'm perfectly content with Ratatouille holding that title. It is, without a doubt, one of the finest films ever to come from the medium of animation. Well fam, that was quite a journey. And now that it's done, I'm gonna unwind with some food from the pantry. Oh my god! All these rats hacked my pantry security and stole my private data. I mean food! If only I could have secured my data with some sort of lock. Good thing Surfshark VPN exists. An incredible product that encrypts your data and protects you online. Surfshark VPN allows you to access geo-restricted content, meaning you can trick your browser into thinking you're in another country, thus allowing you to access content you couldn't get otherwise. That way you don't have to physically travel to another country to watch that country's exclusive Netflix content, for example. You can also use Surfshark and its HackLock system to get alerts anytime your email address or password is compromised. HackLock scans various databases of leaked information and notifies its users if their data is found so they can take action, which is an absolutely invaluable feature. Surfshark is also totally unlimited, meaning you can use it on as many devices as you like, even all at the same time. No other VPN allows this. Go to surfshark.deals/Rillis and enter promo code Rillis to get 83% off and 1 extra month of Surfshark VPN for free. It's an amazing deal, and it's even better because it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not satisfied, you can cancel during those 30 days and get your money back. If you're looking for a great VPN, there's no reason not to give Surfshark a try. Once again, head to surfshark.deals/Rillis and enter the promo code Rillis. Have a great time with Surfshark VPN. But ultimately, both Barry and Remy are shown kindness by one human. The phone is ringing. So, my dear editor, the thing is, I can't exactly cut this part out because, I can't pause the recording. It would have to stop and start a new one. So, my friend, you'll just have to deal with the phone ringing and me talking in order to wait for this to be over. This is a long recording. You don't need to put this in the video or make a joke out of it like some of my outtakes that get turned into jokes. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
Well, despite what you're telling me, I'm just gonna edit over this whole segment anyways, since you tend to give us this much power over these parts. Well, at least for me, since you let me put in anything Rock Dog related in your videos to spread the good message about this movie.
Anyway, we're still waiting.
Yep.
I would just start the recording over, but I was already 4 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully this is entertaining.
Somewhat.
You know what? I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna pull up the B-movie script while I wait for the person who's on the phone to be over so they don't get in the recording. So I'm just gonna read you the B-movie script to keep you entertained while you wait for this to be over. You can skip ahead and see if I'm talking from the B-movie script or talking from my actual Ratatouille script. And so you can just skip ahead, and wherever I am, that's where you can do it. So here we go. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway, because bees don't care what humans think is impossible. Yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black. Ooh, black and yellow. Let's shake it up a little. Barry, breakfast is ready. Come in.
One entirety of the B-movie script later.
Okay, I think the person who's on the phone went in the basement, so now I can record again.
What was that? Oh, the phone stopped ringing. Well, I guess I should get back to working on this thing, since we really don't want to drag this thing on for too long. I mean, there's probably a bunch of people in the comments already complaining that there's a fat fucking furry on screen who never shuts up about the cinematic masterpiece of 2017 knows the movie called Rock Dog.
Get on with it!
Alright, geez, I'll shut up now. Ugh. Well, okay, see ya.